Now let's look at a really fun topic called, I'm going to call it input. What we're going to do, we're going to take in user input. So far, we've only been looking at one-way programming. The programmer decides something and runs it. But it's much more interesting and common to actually get input from the user. So let's look at how we can do that right now. Okay, in your strings notebook, go ahead and open up a new text cell, and let's give it the title of input. Okay, so how does this work? Well, you use the global keyword input. So go ahead and type that in. Type in input, and then note that Colab is even telling you down here on the right, hey, this should be a prompt. So, and it's also showing the parentheses. So you want to put in parentheses, and then in the parentheses, note it says to read a string from standard input, and then there's some code speak. Basically, if you want to get information from a user, you probably want to ask them a question. Something like, single quotes, what is your name? Okay. Now, it's kind of fun to do this, so I encourage you to go ahead and do it first. Press Shift Enter to run it and see what Colab does. Okay, so you got it. So I'll press Shift Enter. It says, what is your name? But note there's like a little space to answer it, and the coding cell is still running. So I don't know if I go down here. I guess I can. Input cells can tie things up, so you want to be sure to use them. Okay. I say that because if you have a notebook and try to run it all, it's got some input in the middle, and it may tie it up there. So I'm going to go ahead and answer the question. My name is Corey. Press Shift Enter. And there you have it. Now, more typically, you're going to want to store the input as a variable so that you can actually use it, right? Because if you're asking the user a question, typically you want to like turn around and use that information somehow. So let's do the same thing, but now store it as the variable name. So the idea here is that it's really the same result. The only difference being it's going to be permanently stored as the variable name. So go ahead and do that. Press Shift Enter to run the cell. And then you can see it asks the same question. I don't have to give the same answer, but it can be fun to like make up, different little, have fun, right, when you're coding. So I once had a nickname Cayato. It was a misspelling of Cayato, the quiet one in Spanish. But that was how the person wanted to spell it, and there you go. So, to finish it out, I need to press return, okay? So after you enter your name or your nickname, press return, and then it's been permanently stored. And you can show this, for instance, if you want to print out the variable name, press Shift Enter, you can see there it is. And you now have my high school nickname. Okay, so what I want to do next is I want to use the input function, it's a global function in Python, to actually write a greeting function. I want to make it a little more interesting. So let's all do this together. Write a greeting function that takes the user input as name. The user input for the name. Okay. How are we going to do that? Well, let's start it off like always. Functions start with def, okay? Space. I'm going to name it something. I'll name it greeting. I did a greeting function before, but I can rewrite it, make it a little more interesting. And then parentheses. Now, there's not going to be any input inside the parentheses. Okay, sometimes it's called a parameter to distinguish it from the global function input. And the reason why is because what we want to do is actually, we want to do it with input inside of the function. Okay, so we're not like telling the user, hey, you've got to put it in here when you run the function. We're going to run this function to get the information. So put a colon, nothing in the parentheses. It'll just run everything underneath. So press return, and now we're going to go ahead and use this line. I'm going to copy it even. Command C, Control C on a Mac, and Command V to get it in there. So it'll do the same thing, but now I can use that variable name. And I will go up and move it up a little. Go ahead and include in this, I think I'll just return it actually. So I'm going to return the F string. Okay, returning a string here. And the string should have some kind of a greeting. Okay, so how about, let's mix it up a little bit. How about konnichiwa? And the name. It's Japanese greeting. So remember to put the name in squiggly brackets and then a period. Okay, so go ahead and finish that function up and then run it. All right, so press Shift Enter to run it. Okay, no errors, so that's good. And then note that to call it, again, I just write greeting with nothing inside the parentheses because that's how the function is in fact defined. So go ahead and call it and use whatever greeting you want. You know, the point is to, you can modify it and have a little fun with it. The point is more about running the input inside of a greeting function, less about using the exact same strings and all that. That's one cool thing with coding is that, you know, typically people don't care what you put in the string when you're practicing stuff. You can totally have fun. Okay, so press Shift Enter, and there you see, right? So we're running the function and it's asking for the user for the input. Okay, you know what? Today I'll be Batman, and press return. Konnichiwa, Batman. Okay, kind of fun, right? So that is how you can use the input function to improve your functions. Job well done.